Hey, it's Mike Seiler here, broker of record with Century 21 in Studio Realty, and thanks for stopping by. I'm going to take a few minutes here to show you guys how I make these signs. The first thing you might be wondering is, where are all my tools? Well, the truth is that you don't need any tools to do this job, so if you're not handy, then you're going to like this video. So the first thing you're going to want to do is head down to your local lumber store and get some 6-foot 2x4s cut. The easiest way I found to do it is to get 12-foot lengths and have them cut in half, because they only sell 2x4s in 8-foot lengths and maybe 10s and 12s. So 12-foot cut in half, and you got your 6-foot post. The next thing you're going to want to get are 1x4s. They come in 8-foot lengths. If you're using the 24-inch wide Century 21 sign, I like to get them cut at 39 inches wide. Some other materials you'll need while you're at the store are some wood glue. For every sign you'll need 2 3-inch deck screws, 2 1.25-inch deck screws, and 2 1.25-inch or 1.5-inch lag bolts. Your next stop is going to be to go to a steel supplier and get some angle iron cut. This is about 32 inches long. It's really rigid. I think it's probably 1/8 of an inch thick. When they cut it, you're going to want them to prime it, or you're going to want to prime it yourself. And then I have them pre-drill holes about 4 inches on one side and 6 inches on the other side. And then with it primed, I can paint it afterward. So your next stop is going to be the paint store. Century 21 has provided us color samples for Deluxe and for Sherwin-Williams. You definitely do not need a can of paint this big. You probably would be fine with a quart. I like to use these microfiber rollers for painting. Make sure that the end has microfiber on it as well. It'll help you to get into the tight crevices on the sign, so you can use the microfiber or a foam roller. Your next stop would be to go see a carpenter or some sort of contractor and get your 2x4s notched out. Kind of give you a side profile there. So this can be done with a router, like a table router or a dado blade on a table saw. So when they're set up properly, it'll take them probably a couple minutes per cut. So do the math, you know, a dozen boards might take a half hour for them to do, and you know, whether they'll charge you, 30 or 40 bucks, give or go, well worth the extra money to get that done. So one more thing that your carpenter can do for you is just take off the corners of the 1x4s, and that just gives it a kind of rounded look. It's something that I like to do. And they can also pre-drill holes for your zip ties. I use these big black zip ties, which are UV rated, so they won't get brittle and break off. And the biggest zip ties, you'll want to make 1/4-inch holes or a little bit bigger. And if you put the grommets in the same spot on your sign every time, I do mine 6 inches on each side, then you can tell your carpenter to pre-drill at 8 inches and at 20 inches. So that's if you're doing all the measurements the same way that I am doing, and have your grommets set in 6 inches on each side. So I'll put that in the description as well. So now that you have your 2x4s notched out and your 1x4s all ready, you just want to apply some wood glue in this space here, and then just tap in a couple of those 1.25-inch deck screws. Doesn't seem like a lot, but wood glue is very strong. The bond it'll make is stronger than the wood itself, so that will be sufficient to hold your sign together for as long as the life of the sign is. Then you're ready to paint. So the 3-inch screws are meant to put on the top of the 1x4s, and that way your riders can just slide over top of the screws. Make sure that when you order your riders, you get 8 or 10 mil coroplast, and you want your flutes going up and down. If you get 6 mil, which is what I make my signs out of, they won't slide over top of a standard deck screw. So 8 or 10 mil, screw them on top like that. Pretty easy, eh? The only other thing I might add is if you make a bunch of these signs, and you, depending on where you store them, the 2x4s can sometimes warp. One suggestion might be to store them outside somewhere, and another suggestion might be to take a bunch of them and tie them or strap them together. I found that one really good coat is usually enough, but just to make your signs look really good, I would suggest that you put 2 coats on. I've painted this sign over my existing yellow signs, and this is just 1 coat, so you can see it covers pretty well. When you're hammering in your angle iron, I don't know, you probably should have some sort of call before you dig in place. I'm kind of ashamed to admit I have hit a phone line once. So if you're going to install these signs yourself, you're going to need a sledgehammer and an impact driver. And I like to use these 1-piece impact bits for putting in my lag bolts. So let me take a minute and show you how quickly it is to throw one of these signs up. So that's it. Pretty simple, eh? If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me. Have a great day. Good morning.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. I'm making a video, so if you see me talking to myself, then